Um, and I'd just like to say, welcome everybody to CSL, Texas Hill Country. That's Centers for Spiritual Living and what have you. But I'm Reverend Beth, and I'm happy to greet you here this morning and know that it is all God and it is all good. And I just loved your song, Diana. That was great. But anyhow, that has been our theme for the month, and I'd like to start our celebration off with a story. It's about a young woman that was experiencing some really significant challenges in her life. And she did not know how she was going to make it and really wanted to give up. She was at her wits' end and she was tired of fighting and struggling. And it seemed as one problem was solved, another one came up. And so she was just quite discouraged and didn't know where to turn. So she was a daddy's girl. So she went to her father for comfort and support. And her father, who happened to be a chef, took her to the kitchen. And he sat her down at the kitchen table. And he then filled 3 pots with equal amounts of water and placed each on the stove on a high fire. And soon the pots were coming to a boil. In one of the pots, he placed carrots. And in the second pot, he placed eggs. And in the last one, he placed some ground coffee beans. And he let them boil without saying a word. Now, the daughter was waiting rather impatiently, wondering what he was doing. And he was wondering what he was tallying around about. But in about 20 minutes, he had turned off the burners. And he fished out the carrots and placed them in a bowl. And he pulled out the eggs and placed them in another bowl. And then he ladled the coffee out of the and placed it into a cup. And turning to her, he asked, "Now, what do you see?" And she said, "Carrots, eggs, and coffee." And he brought her closer and asked her to taste the carrots. And she did. And they were soft and mushy and tasteless. In fact, they were pretty much ruined. He then asked her to try an egg. And after peeling off the shell, she bit into the very, very, very hard boiled egg. It was inedible. And finally, he asked her to sip the coffee. And she smiled as she tasted its rich flavor. Confused and perhaps more than a little annoyed at the time that had passed and the lack of comfort and support that she felt from her father, she asked, "An interesting experiment, Dad, but what does this have to do with me and my problems?" And he explained that the carrots and the eggs and the ground coffee beans each had faced the same severe adversity, boiling water, yet each reacted differently. The carrot went in strong and tough, but after being objected to the boiling water became weak and even mushy. The egg, which had been frail to begin with, being held together by a thin outer shell, after being boiled for 20 minutes, became hardened inside. And the ground coffee beans, however, were unique. Even after they boiled for 20 minutes, they did not really change. They stayed true to what they were, but they changed the water. They changed the water. And he went on to ask his daughter, "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot that seems strong and tough, but with pain and adversity you wilt and become soft? Do you lose your strength? Or are you the egg, which starts off with a soft, fluid center, but in the face of challenges becomes hardened inside? Your shell may look the same, but something inside is gone. Or are you like the coffee beans? They did not change. They stayed true to what they were, and in the face of real adversity, they changed the world around them. They changed the water into coffee." And he then said, "My darling daughter, The best comfort and advice I can give you is to be like the coffee bean. When things are at their worst, remember who you are and stay true to your nature, and you will change the world around you. So, this morning, we're going to take a look at how we can make sure that we experience life as a coffee bean. And we do that by putting one foot in front of the other and on our spiritual path, even when it seems like it isn't all good in the neighborhood. It's not all good and it's not all God. It seems like, even though that's our theme, that it is all good and it is all God. In other words, to keep on keeping on and not to get discouraged along the way and get all mushy and wilted or become hardened inside, rather to remain steadfast in the truth of who we are. All prayers are answered in due time, in God's time. And our major principle for today is that our spiritual unfoldment is gradual, it's sequential, and it's cumulative. This spiritual unfoldment process often involves challenges, adversity, yes, even gain, even pain. In fact, that seems to be what gets our attention the most, as we explored last week. And in the process of realizing that our spiritual unfoldment is gradual and sequential and cumulative, there are three ideas that I want us to think about this morning and explore. The first is, wherever we stop is where we end up. Giving up are not words in the vocabulary of those who succeed. And the second one is, every experience we have in our lives has the opportunity to be a wake-up call. I'll go into that a little more later. And the third is, our most profound good comes when we hold fast to truth, especially when we cannot see an immediate result. Wherever we stop is where we end up. Giving up are not words in the vocabulary of those who succeed. Consider these facts regarding people we would like to be that we frequently consider successful in their chosen fields. Excuse me. Woody Allen flunked his motion picture production class at New York University. And when Lucille Ball began studying to be an actress, she was told by the head instructor of her drama school, try another profession, dear, any other profession. And a Universal Pictures executive dismissed both Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds at the same time. To Burt Reynolds, he said, you have no talent. And to Clint Eastwood, he said, you have a chip on your tooth and your Adam's apple sticks out too far and you talk too slowly. Malcolm Forbes, the late editor-in-chief of Forbes magazine, failed to make the staff of the school newspaper when he was an undergraduate student. The Beatles were turned down by a recording company whose executives said, we don't like their sound. Besides, guitar groups are on the way out. And Wilma Rudolph was the 20th of 22 children. She was born prematurely and her survival was doubtful. And when she was 4 years old, she contracted double pneumonia and scarlet fever, which left her with a paralyzed left leg. However, at the age of 9, she removed the metal leg brace and she had been dependent on for all that time and began to walk without it. At 13, she decided to become a runner. She entered a race and came in last. And for the next few years, every race she entered, she came in last. And everyone told her to quit, but she kept on running. And one day she actually won a race, and then another, and then another, and then another. And she went on to win every race she entered. And eventually, this little girl, who was told she would never walk again, went on to win 3 Olympic gold medals. And when Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, he tried over 2,000 experiments before he got it to work. And when asked how it felt to fail so many times, he said, "I never failed once. I invented the light bulb. It just happened to be a 2,000 step process. It was just information feedback." And for a just man, I'm going to read you from Proverbs 24:16. For a just man falleth 7 times and riseth up again. Never give up. Robert Schuller, when faced with a mountain, "I will not quit. I will keep on striving until I climb over, find a pass through tunnel underneath, or simply stay and with God's help turn my mountain into a miracle." Persistence and determination are the key. And here's an affirmation for you to remember. I am not discouraged. I am persistent, and I move forward into my highest good. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence and determination. With God's help, I now persist into my highest good. And so the first key to keep on keeping on is being a coffee bean, like a coffee bean, is never quit, never give up, because where you stop is where you stay. So where you stop is where you stay. Number 2, every experience we have in our lives has the opportunity to be a profound wake-up call. A wake-up call to what, you're going to ask? And it's to our true nature, to the true nature of the universe. And every experience has the opportunity to show us where we are out of alignment with the natural rhythm and harmony of life. Ernest Holmes wrote this in the textbook. We should not despise apparent failures, the temporary chagrins of life, for they are salutary. It's English lesson time, and because what does salutary mean? Salutary in this case means healthy, invigorating, good, helpful, advantageous. So the temporary chagrins of life, for they are salutary, leading the soul to the inner Christ, the way, the truth, and the light. And when the experience is complete, the lesson will be learned, and we shall enter the paradise of contentment. And when we can see that every experience we've had is in the past, and every one we are now having, whatever label we want to put on it, good or bad, and when we can see that they have taken place for the purpose of making us conscious beings, we are that much closer to realizing what it means to be made in the image and likeness of God. We will continue in whatever particular experience we're in, over and over, until we discover what it is telling us. After becoming conscious, whatever our particular mistakes have been, they will never happen to us again, because their purpose for being no longer exists. The more conscious we are, and the more we will automatically produce harmony in the place of disease. Remember, gradual, sequential, and cumulative. Our third one is our most profound change comes when we hold fast to truth, especially when we cannot see the results. Our most profound change comes when we hold fast to truth, especially when we cannot see the results. A mother reminds her young son to wash the icky germs off his hands before dinner. And the son comes to the table for dinner, and the mother says, "Let's thank Jesus for our food." The little boy looks upset and he says, "Mom, all you ever talk about is Jesus and germs, and I've never seen either one of them." Trust in the unseen. But I do know that sometimes we can get frustrated and discouraged. And when we want and what we desire and what we pray for doesn't show up in the here and now. There was a powerful article in the Science of Mind magazine some time ago, and it was entitled "When Prayer Doesn't Seem to Work." The article was written by Dr. Jesse Jennings, who's the minister of the Center for Spiritual Living outside of Houston in Spring, Texas. Dr. Jennings wrote about what just might be going on when we've prayed and nothing seems to be happening in our physical world. The outcome isn't quite here yet, where our senses can register it, but it is forming even as we speak. Things move in cycles. Nature needs winter as much as summer. Summer can be likened to demonstration and winter to the preparation for demonstrations. Trees actually grow more in the winter underground where we can't see the growth. And the same is true of our symbolic winters, our times of silence, introspection, and apparent dormancy. When nothing seems to be happening, we can be confident that it is happening in the underground self. Did you know that it takes 5 years for the seed of the bamboo tree to show any growth above ground? And then it grows to a height of 90 feet in 6 weeks. So when it starts coming forth, it comes forth. And so we work step by step, moment by moment, in progression in the unfoldment of good. We do not attain complete freedom in a single leap. It is gradual, sequential, and cumulative. Remember that God has given you mastery over everything. Stop letting anything have dominion over you. Nothing outside can control you. Nothing is impossible for us because nothing is impossible for God. And this is a quote from a longtime minister in our movement, Reverend Johnny Coleman. And she used to say, "We must stand on our own two big spiritual feet." Truth principles must become part of our lives. And to put it simply, to keep on keeping on, being like that coffee bean, we must stay aligned with God. We must continue our spiritual practices. And Ernest Holmes tells us why in the Science of Mind textbook. When we separate ourselves from divine fire, we become an isolated spark. We are strong only when united with life. And as soon as our consciousness is detached from spiritual wholeness, we can no longer draw from that inexhaustible reservoir of eternal existence. So we become exhausted. There is nothing to fall back on. Life is one perfect wholeness. The universe is a unit. God is one. It is impossible for us to feel separated from the spirit without feeling lost and in want. That subtle something which runs through all things, that life without which nothing can live, that power without which nothing can move, and that spirit without which nothing can be, is God. It is only as we live in conscious union with the Spirit and consciously let it work through us that we really live. And the word universe means one vibration. One vibration. So today, let us keep on keeping on. And let us not stop in our quest to return to wholeness, because wherever we stop is where we end up. Let us allow every challenge that comes our way to serve as a wake up call to greater awareness. And finally, and of greatest importance, let us remain steadfast and true to our alignment with the infinite source of all things, remembering with God, all things are possible. Bless you and namaste.
Thank you, Reverend Bell.